Welcome to Parks and Cons, companion podcast, the parksandcons.com website and YouTube channel, where we discuss cons, theme parks, collecting, and other fun stuff. It's March 16th, 2022. I'm your host, Sean. I'm here with Carmel.
Hi there.
Parks and Cons, your on-the-spot podcast, where we take the heart of the action of best conventions and themed entertainment events around. Today, we are going to be flashing back to two recent experiences, one a convention and one an interactive kind of bar type thing. That was a lot of fun.
Activation.
Yeah, activation. So we'll talk about both of those in just a moment. We are recording currently in the Disneyland Hotel kind of courtyard area here outside the Fantasy Tower Convention Center area, because we are down here shooting a bunch of stuff for WonderCon and getting our visual guides ready. We're going to have a Patreon exclusive kind of downtown Disneyland Hotel kind of guide to all the shopping, eating, etc. that's in the area. So if you're interested in joining the Parks and Cons crew and checking out that video, you can head over there. If not, also though, we will have other guides up. Our usual visual guide will be on the channel, and we'll be teaming up with the SDCC unofficial blog on some stuff as well. So lots of WonderCon content to come in the weeks ahead, but we're not talking about that now. We are talking about, let's start out with our Star Trek experience last Thursday. This was something pretty fantastic, and actually both of the things, I'll just say it off the top, both things we're going to be talking about, these are things we paid for, we didn't have media access to or anything like that. The first one, 10 Forward, we actually had seen Outside Comic Con had posted that this was something that was happening, that Paramount Plus was doing as a promotion for the Season 2 premiere of Picard. Actually, the event started, I believe, the day after the second season, second episode premiered. And this was an interactive, bar-type activation where you were able to journey into the world of Picard as featured in the debut episode of 10 Forward. There was no Guinan in the flesh there, but, you know, they did their best to kind of mock up a really fun experience over at the, what was in the Arts District there.
Yeah, in LA. When we saw that there was an activation and it was called 10 Forward, I was kind of expecting that we were going to be going into like the 10 Forward of the Enterprise, but then once we saw the episode where there is 10 Forward, Guinan's bar basically in the Picard universe or timeline or time whatever, I was like, oh wait, that's where we're going to be going. We're going to be going into Guinan's bar. It's different than the 10 Forward on the Enterprise, and so I was still excited. I was excited to go on the Enterprise, but you know, the other version is fine too. But yeah, I was kind of pleasantly surprised by it. But when we saw that the tickets, we saw Kim's tweet. That it was up for sale. I don't remember where we were driving to, but
I don't even know. Some convention somewhere, something. Yeah, I don't know.
We
We were on the
somewhere.
road.
Yeah, and I was driving, and you were like, "There's this thing," and we were like trying to weigh out like, should we go? Should we not go? How much are tickets and stuff? But when you described that it was going to be $25 per person, and that it was going to include food and drink and stuff in LA, I was like, well, that's really not that bad. $25 for food and a drink or drinks, and then it ended up being more once we actually looked into it. But just like in that moment, it's like quickly weighing out.
The experience was more, not the price was more.
I'm sorry. The experience provided more. There was more to the experience than I was expecting when we initially made that decision, because in that moment, it was like a thing where I wasn't sure if it was going to sell out super quick or whatever, so I felt like we needed to make a decision immediately. And then once we looked into it, there was more information, and it was more than I was expecting when we first purchased the tickets. So
it was described when we made the decision to buy. It was called 10 Forward. The experience says open from March 10th through March 20th at 1262 Palmetto Street. Guests will visit the Star Trek Picard world with Trek photo ops, exclusive merchandise at the official 10 Forward canteen store, and themed food and drinks. Romulan ale, anyone, at everyone's favorite social hub of the future. And so the price, because we figured, I guess any interactive experience, particularly in LA, you figure like, okay, it's going to be $50, $75, $100, something like that. And so seeing it was $25 and we could get in there on opening night, we're like, yeah, let's jump on. We didn't even bother trying to reach out to see if we could get media access. They did have they called it a VIP night when we were there. Actually, the staff was referring to it as an influencers night the night previous to it. And so they had a bunch of Star Trek people there and stuff like that. But we thought, well, let's just buy the tickets. And the food had also also highlighted that basically throughout the run they were going to be featuring different food trucks. And so the night that we went, it was the Lime truck, but also during the run were things like Son of a Bun, Philly J's, Cousin's Maine Lobster, Aloha Fridays, made in Brooklyn. So a lot of pretty famous food trucks. A lot of I used to watch the show on what was it, the Food Network or whatever, the Great Food Truck Race or whatever it was called, the challenge show. And some of them were featured there. In fact, the night that we were there, Lime Truck was there, and they were, I believe, a competitor on one of those race shows. So it just seemed like a lot for $25. So we pulled the trigger. The tickets were through Fever, and they were time allotments. So basically, our time, we had a choice between, was it 6:30 or 8:30, I believe.
I think so.
And so a Thursday night in LA, an hour and a half at least drive for us, and then work the next morning. We definitely were going with the early option, and that's what we chose, and we got our tickets and, proceeded from there.
Yeah, and basically we, afterwards, once we looked a little closer and stuff, or maybe it was on the ticket, I don't remember, but it was 90-minute time slots, and they were very clear that they were going to clean the entire environment in between the time slots. So yeah, it was 90 minutes, $25. And I know when we got there, the person who sat us, basically made it very clear that it was an all-you-can-eat situation and stuff. And so, yeah, basically $25 for all-you-can-eat food from this food truck. And I think the non-alcoholic beverages were also all-you-can-drink, but the alcoholic beverages were definitely $2 per ticket.
Yeah.
And so we don't drink, so we didn't really have issues with that or anything like that. But we did partake in the food and the soda and stuff. And so when we got there, it was kind of cool. Well, they checked for vaccine status and all that stuff and gave us a wristband and things. So when we were standing outside in the line, it was cool because they had kind of like poster murals or kind of on the windows and stuff. And then there was the entryway, and there was a 10 on it because if you haven't watched the show, I don't think it's too spoilery or anything to describe that. Basically, 10 Forward is the bar that Guinan owns, and the address is 10, so 10, and then the street is Forward. Or Forward Avenue or Boulevard or Avenue.
The sign, they had the official signage up, said Forward Avenue Historic District.
So the entryway had the 10 on it, and then on the side of the entryway was a sign that said what you just described, the Historic District sign, Forward Avenue. So I thought even just from the outside it was pretty cool.
It was, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge John Delancey, particularly, Q fan, and so seeing him up there, and he's a big part of season 2 of Picard, next to Patrick Stewart, was like just cool all on its own, and it felt immediately from the outside like we were at San Diego Comic-Con for an activation. And there's a lot of things about this. It was saying that I think, Comic-Con people would balk at the idea of paying $25 because people are used to everything being free when it comes to activations at Comic-Con, or so many of them. But I do think that this whole formula is pretty magical because it's like you had a time slot, you had unlimited food, so you were only going to eat so much because you're only there for so long. But also all the seating was reserved inside. So once you made your way into the experience, you had a seat assigned to you, and you could leave your stuff there, wander around, see whatever there is to be seen. And so I thought it was a really nice setup all the way inside. And you did actually a YouTube live, so we do have that video up on the channel if you want to kind of see Carmel going through and kind of narrating a little bit and showing that. And then also, I know for our vidcast people, those of you watching on YouTube for this podcast, you're able to kind of see, I did kind of just a 10-minute walk through of the area without any descriptions or anything like that, but just that visuals kind of clicking along as we are talking there.
Yeah, and so it was kind of really cool because also as soon as we walked in, they gave us a little card with a QR code on it, and that was basically what we used to order our food. So basically the QR code linked to a website, and then you just enter what table you were at. So table number, we were at table 4, I believe. And then I just put in our order for food, and so initially I just ordered one of everything because I wasn't sure. I don't think we've ever. I'm pretty sure we've never eaten from that food truck before. So,
no, I haven't. And
I didn't do a lot of research going into it, so I was just like, well, we'll do one of everything. So by one of everything, it ended up being I think 3 tacos. There was a steak, a chicken, and a potato taco, and then some. I think they call it crispy. Not sprouts.
Oh yeah, the Brussels sprouts.
Brussels
that's right.
sprouts. That's right. And then little corn on the cob.
Yeah.
And so it was all very tasty. It was a little spicy for me, but still tasty. And then we just had sodas.
And that's another one of those like as we were there and reflecting back on it, that you're like this. You wonder if you'll see anything like this at Comic-Con. The idea of ordering online, I mean, part of obviously any of these things. I mean, we've talked about it. Just kind of sometimes the various film industry, TV, streaming, whatever that are out at Comic-Con. Sometimes they want to be in smaller rooms because they do want the big lines, because the big lines and the packed house, is kind of good for business because you see how popular something is. So, I don't even know that any of the entities that'll be out at Comic-Con this summer or any summer in the future really want to minimize lines. There's something to be said for those 3-hour waits and saying that you are the busiest and stuff. But in terms of as a customer, as a guest, it's so nice to be able to just kind of book things. And everything about this, I felt like it was like the most kind of relaxing activation we've ever been to, because it was just like there was room to move around. You had a reserved seat. You could order your food and drink from your phone. It was just like the most chill hour and a half that we ever had. And so even like with you and I running around trying to, you're doing a YouTube live, I'm posting all this stuff on social, we're getting the video to go in the background of the vidcast and stuff like that. Even with all of that, it felt like we had time to actually eat and enjoy ourselves and talk and take things in, interact with the characters. And so maybe actually let's turn to that, some of the, just the things inside. I mean, I think first and foremost to me there was 2 actors that were really pretty outstanding. There was a Vulcan and an Andorian, so a male Vulcan and a female Andorian. And, it's something, there was just 2, and it depends how you look at it, just 2 actors. I thought maybe there'd be a little bit more. I know at the VIP night there was 4 actors there, but having just the 2, like, it added a lot of life to the whole thing, and having them cruise around. And it's funny because the couple that was sitting next to us, they're talking, one of them was talking about Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, and how, it's 2 more actors than Oga's Cantina has, because they have Rex over there, but they don't have the, the actors and stuff. And I thought, it really is true. I mean, going back to opening day of, Galaxy's Edge, that was kind of the disappointment. Even when I was there for the preview, that's been the kind of consistent thing of being a little disappointed that you don't have more, just activity over there. And so looking at this little experience and having the 2 actors, I mean, they were taking selfies, they were interacting. There's a point in the video that we have running kind of in the background where I was going by a phone booth that they have there, and the Andorian kind of came over and was like, and we put video of this on Instagram on our reels and TikTok and stuff, but the actor came over and was like, I think I know what this is. And it was like she wanted to kind of tell me or kind of check in with me on what she had learned about the 20th century and how phones worked, and in your hand that's a phone, and there's something called a selfie, and so later we took selfies with them. But they were just really great, fun actors. They seemed like they wanted to interact the whole time. They never left the set. They were there because I thought maybe we needed to rush to get a photo with them in the first half hour, because honestly I'm kind of used to Disney with stuff like that. I'm like, well, they're going to be here a half hour, then they're going to disappear, and that's going to be it.
I think it's usually more like 15 minutes, and then there's some sort of trade-off and stuff. But yeah, no, I'm guessing these weren't union actors necessarily, but or maybe their entire night was that half hour. Maybe that other set of actors were coming in for the next time slot. I don't know, but those 2 were really great, and they were very very nice. And the Vulcan wasn't particularly talkative, but as is typical for a Vulcan,
Mm-hmm.
but he did do the live long and prosper sign as we were taking photos and stuff. And so it was really cool.
So we basically could enter at 6:30, and then 8 is like when you're supposed to kind of wrap up, and then the next room's coming in at 8:30. So kind of the 8 to 8:30 is their reset. So they were there, I think, every minute from 6:30 to that reset time at 8, because that's about when we left. Is you can kind of feel like, okay, it's time to go. But they're great.
Well, I did find out from the table next to us ordering food toward the end. Last call for food was 7:45, so our time slot is ending at 8, and last call was 15 minutes before. So
makes sense.
Up to that point, we could have ordered as much food as we wanted and non-alcoholic beverage and stuff. But yeah, it was really cool. I mean, so going in there, there was all these pictures, and I think pretty much immediately was one of Guinan's costumes on display.
Yeah, I think so. They had 2 of her costumes on display. And then, as you said, like on the walls, like they had Musical Festival 2395, and they had a lot of photos that seemed to be, I'm guessing, of like behind the scenes of crew. I mean, some of them were of the actors too, but a lot seemed like it was, I don't know, producers or artists at like Halloween parties and stuff. And they were all very subtle. Like you had to go like look for them. They weren't like, audacious or anything like that. They were kind of all just very, very subtle.
Yeah, I think the one that caught my attention the most, there was a photo of Picard and Guinan in their jousting outfits, and in Next Generation there's a whole thing when they are jousting together, but in this picture they're both like sitting taking a break next to each other, which I'm pretty sure isn't in the show, so I think that was like behind the scenes of them just taking a break in between shoots, I guess, or whatever. So that was kind of cool to see that photo there. And
again, it was nice to have the time to actually look at the walls and kind of take time to take all that stuff in. And, now the bar, there was two things direct off the set of Picard Season 2. One was the bar that they moved in. And so that was neat to see. And it's something that when I saw the post about the VIP night, and I saw the bar, and I didn't think a lot of it because I wasn't connecting that this is basically, the Picard version of the bar. And it's like, okay, this is actually the thing. It was just kind of like, hey, it doesn't look like the one from Next Generation. But it's like, well, of course it doesn't look like they're promoting Picard here. The other thing, though, they have the 10 Forward sign and the stairs also. So you could kind of pose in front of those. And I don't know if a lot of people knew what that was because I didn't see too many taking pictures. I saw some. But fortunately for us, when we bought some merch there, the employee, the representative, told us about it and was like really nice. And like, I don't know if everybody knows, but that's like direct off the set. And it's like, okay, let's go get our picture over there as if we're on the set. And so that was really neat as well.
And then one of the other photos I saw was a picture of Gates McFadden and Whoopi Goldberg, but I think they were in costume, so I guess it was more Dr. Crusher and Guinan. But the photo, the way they were standing, reminded me more of like a photo op from like a convention. So I don't know if that photo was taken from on set or what, but it was just really cool seeing all these photos. And of course, if we're in Guinan's bar, she's going to have photos of her friends and stuff. So there was her with Dr. Crusher and again with Picard and stuff, and then various very cool photos and stuff. And then and the phone booth, I don't really know what the significance was of that, but there was a phone booth, and I think it was meant to be a photo op, but I don't know if maybe we'll see that in the show later, or if I don't know, but it was a cool piece there. And then there was obviously Guinan, second costume, Guinan's a second Guinan costume, and stuff, and then the merch I thought was pretty impressive too.
Yeah, we bought a Confederation poster, Confederation headquarters, which we didn't quite get or I didn't get at least, but that comes up in episode 2 of Picard Season 2. So we had not watched it at that point because it had just come out at midnight before. They had some of the Chateau Picard wine goblets there. They had some beer glasses the same. Some T-shirts. You and I each got 10 Forward T-shirts there. They had sweatshirts, and all of it was pretty reasonable priced. I mean, like a sweatshirt was $35, which I was really surprised. So everything about it felt like this is kind of that compromise. Like this is a promotional thing, but we kind of talked about like what did the $25 go towards? Was it like tips for people? Was it paying the servers? Because obviously that was not funding this entire experience. So there was some big chunk that was like the promotional budget from Paramount Plus, and then there was some portion like, well, we need to supplement it a little bit, and that's the $25. But it didn't feel like it felt like everything about it was trying to promote the season much more so than make money off of the event. And so
agreed. Now it did seem like an event that we had normally gone to. We would have walked away with like a freebie bag or some goodies or something, or like they would have given us some of the merch, but that wasn't the case. We did pay for the merch and stuff, but yeah, I want to say, weren't the T-shirts like $15?
Yeah, I was going to say,
it wasn't even
15.
$20.
Yeah.
And then you could scan a QR code to order alcohol. They had like bottles of the Picard wine and like a Vulcan something, I think, and a few different bottles and stuff, but they didn't have them there. You'd need to order them, and I guess they were going to be mailed out. I didn't really look into that too closely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it was really well done, I thought. I mean, the whole experience was a lot of fun. And again, at $25, it was like, such a no-brainer thing in retrospect. It seemed like a no-brainer when we decided, but we didn't know, especially for us because in addition to the price, there's obviously gas, which has gotten a lot more expensive, and there's the wear and tear on the car, and there's the drive time, and there's, being out at, however late at night and having work the next morning. But it still seemed like it was the right move, and in retrospect, I think it was definitely the right move, and it seemed to work quite well. So
yeah, it was
kudos
a
to
lot
them.
smoother than I expected. There was more provided than I initially expected. It was just a fun, cool experience, and it was also kind of cute to me. But usually when we go to like bar type settings in LA, it's people are dressed up and it's kind of trendy and they're in their heels and stuff. And I'm usually, I don't know, that's not generally my crowd. But it was cool to be at this event with a lot of other Trek fans because they were Trek fans. They were not they weren't models, and they weren't like super trendy people. It was just cool. It was like it felt comfortable being among other Trek fans and stuff. It was just kind of a cool, as you said, it was just very relaxed environment.
Very
I was
relaxed.
surprised by how
Very welcoming.
comfortable it was, but it was, and it was definitely a fun event, and agreed. Kudos to the team that put that together.
Yeah, and definitely our first activation in quite a while. So I don't know. Hopefully, we'll have many more of them as we come to San Diego this summer. But it was a fun one to get in there, and it was a neat way to kind of get introduced to that world of Picard in the physical world. So then we'll flash forward a couple days later. Well, really, one day later, TFCon started, and so you actually sat out TFCon. Our whole plans with TFCon kind of changed and moved around a lot because we had other obligations throughout the weekend, things we wanted to do as well. There was conflicts there. There was never a press application that went up, and I know you emailed them a couple times and they didn't respond to emails, which is not uncommon with shows that don't post their press applications, but it always is a little confusing because you're like, okay, do you want coverage? Do you not want coverage? How do we do it? I still wanted to see the show regardless. Now, for me, Transformers it is my blind eye more than any other when it comes to toys of the 80s and things like that, which is really strange to me in a way because the toys were such a huge deal to me. I mean, I remember just I needed Optimus Prime and Starscream and Megatron and all of them, like the Dinobots, just all of it was such a huge deal to me. And I don't even know when I kind of fell out of Transformers, but I do know this is Transformers were something that did not the toys themselves did not make it through my childhood, so none of them remained as I got to kind of those middle school years. And unlike every other toy line where we would go to like toy shows or conventions over the years, including right now, and I'd pick up, cheaply a Kenner Star Wars figure or a Hasbro G.I. Joe or Amigo, Riddler, whatever it might be. Transformers always felt a little impenetrable to pick up vintage because they're, robots. They're robots in disguise. There's so many pieces that could be broken off, little intricacies to them. And so when the 90s came, I wasn't reacquiring them the way I was trying to reacquire other toys from my childhood, and that just kind of spun on and on and on. I've never been a big retro toy collector, so I'm not one to really, I don't love the retro Star Wars figures or things like that. Like things that are made now of the old stuff, I just want the old stuff normally. The only kind of exception is like something like, let's say, Super 7 with their Reaction Planet of the Apes figures. Those are something that never existed, and then it's like, okay, this never existed. I really want that, So anyway, all that is to say that Transformers, I feel like, has just become increasingly an area of, I don't know if confusion's the right word, but just like, I wish I knew more because I want to collect them, and and so kind of say now I wanted to go back, I wanted to be educated there, but because of how the weekend ended up breaking down, I didn't really have as much time there as I had hoped, and so it didn't really end up being very educational, but it did get me kind of more interested in something like PowerCon. When we first went to PowerCon, I want to say it was like 2012 or something like that, and I had been in a very similar place with Masters of the Universe, and being there, it's like, okay, let me remember what I love about these things. Let me start trying to reacquire, 1 or 2 or 3 figures a year. And so we'll see if that happens with Transformers. It did not happen on this particular visit, meaning I didn't pick anything up. But
well, they're generally like pretty expensive to get vintage, right? Like to get a complete one that doesn't have broken pieces, they're like fairly pricey. Or
well, so yeah, that's the thing, is it's relative. So that's the thing too, is right now there's a big barrier to entry to collecting vintage toys for everything. Like if right now I was going to get into collecting, well, let's not even say Star Wars, because that's too big of a price tag, but let's say G.I. Joe. I was looking the other day at like, I'd like to get a packaged Tomax and Zaymod, because I loved the twins, the evil twins from G.I. Joe, and it was like $2,000 was the last one, $2,200. So now you can get loose versions, though, of those for like $60. So there's a big separation there, and so I will pick up the loose ones at some point. But to your point, yeah, I mean, most everything I was looking at that caught my eye at this show was $100 or more, particularly, I'd say around the $150, $200 range, and that was for loose, like complete Transformer. So again, I didn't pick anything up in that way. I did pick a few things up, and I'll talk about that, but I do think this is a show that sparked my interest. I just wish we would have more time, because as you and I have talked about many times over the years, the more times you have it, the more time you have at anything, the more you can appreciate it, the more you can like it. It goes back to us going to one day of San Diego Comic-Con and you not loving it, and we go 4 days and we're like, oh, this is really good, and now we spend 8 days there and stuff. And so this one, I was only there 4 hours that day. It was a very, very quick visit, but I am hoping that TFCon comes back. Now, they do travel. My understanding, and this is from an outsider's perspective, because I'm not in the Transformers community, so all of this is just me admiring the show, loving toy collecting as a general, and loving conventions as a general thing. But my understanding is this is a relatively new convention. BotCon had a little bit more history to it. TFCon takes place, I believe they have a Chicago show coming up and a Toronto show, so there are multiple locations, so I would hope that they come back to LA or somewhere in Southern California in the next year or two. But it is possible that it is something like a Star Wars Celebration, where we might not see it for 5 or 6 years or something like that.
Did you get into the location and the price yet?
So no, I was going to go over some of these logistical things. So it's at the Burbank Marriott. So that was the first time which was kind of a strange thing, returning to that hotel, because the last time I was there was, I believe, 2 weeks before the shutdown. It was very beginning of March or end of February, whatever the calendar falls. That's when I got Tony Dow and Jerry Mathers to sign from Leave to Beaver to sign at the Hollywood show. And I remember it was a very crowded show with a lot of elderly actors, and we were not obviously wearing masks at that point or anything, but it just felt a little like, is this okay? Are we all okay? And it seems okay, and so being back at that location, it almost felt a little bit like one of those kind of key moments in a fixed point in history or something like that. But it's at the Burbank Marriott, so a weekend pass was $60. And they do an interesting thing with their passes, though. So the weekend pass gave you access to the Friday night activities, which Friday night, the dealer room's not open to the public, and so they had things like at 9 a.m. started a customizing class. That was a special ticket. 5 to 8 was advanced ticket registration. They had their premium ticket members, which I believe they limited to only 100 people, and they got like front of the line service in terms of like accessing the show exclusives and things like that. At 7 p.m. there was a Transformers animated retrospective, remembering Derek J. Wyatt with Eric Sibler, Marty Eisenberg, and Josh Perez. 8 p.m. was an opening ceremony. And then 8:10 p.m., The Secret of Five Faces of Darkness with Flint Dille and Jim Sorensen. And then 8 to 10, Transformers TCG Open Play, which the tabletop gaming kind of rolled throughout the weekend. But so Friday night was almost like a panel-only type of kind of preview night in a lot of ways. Then so Saturday, this is what really also kind of threw the curtain. Like in addition to them not having a press application, in addition to them not responding to emails, in addition to not really being familiar with this con, they had some strange things. So like looking at trying to decide what we wanted to do with like our Saturday, Sunday, when we looked, so the exhibit hall opened at 9 a.m. on Saturday, but it was only open to the early admission people for weekend. To early admission and weekend pass holders. So it didn't open to a regular like day attendee. So like if I would have just bought a Saturday ticket, it wouldn't have opened till noon. And then we had things kind of going on in the later half on Saturday. So we're like, I don't know, do we want to just sit around till noon? And then so that became complicated as well. But on Saturday they had some good panels as well. I mean, the highlight of the weekend for sure is just all the voice actors there. But they had the music of Transformers the movie. They had a Transformers costume contest. They had Robots in Disguise Q&A. They had a live action movie Q&A as well. Live script auditions and readings, and then of course the Transformers War for Cybertron cast and Q&A, which was, I know, a big deal for the weekend. War for Cybertron being a big deal in the Transformers community right now. So all of that to say, I went Sunday. So Sunday, the collection...
Well, the panel schedule didn't even get released until a few days before,
actually, that's
right?
a great point. Yeah, it was about 3 or 4 days, I think, before. So that was also, weighed into everything as we were trying to decide what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it made it difficult. If we had press, we would have made it more of a priority.
And
and
it would have been all 3 days.
Yeah,
no
we
doubt.
would have gotten out there early. We would have, really taken it all in. But not having that obligation, in a way, I guess, kind of having press access is kind of, to us, we want to be sure to cover things, especially if we're provided with press. And so not having that, it was, we were kept going kind of back and forth. And I knew you wanted to go to the show, but at points you were like, you just were going to skip it. And I'm like, no, you've been looking forward to this show. You should go at least one of the days. But yeah, and then at some point I was asking you about the panel schedule, because it's like, well, if there's panels that are important to you on Saturday or Sunday, that would help make the decision. But without that schedule coming out, or with that schedule only coming out a few days before, it just kind of went lower and lower on the priority list.
Yeah, and the show actually in some ways reminds me of a Gallifrey 1 or a Monster Palooza, both shows that we buy tickets to that don't do press, and we buy our tickets because if we love the show, we love the show. But what I mean by that is it's a show that TFCon seemed like it really attracts people from all over. I mean, there was people there from out of the country, there was people there from across the country, and my feeling is that a good chunk of the patrons there, they were coming for anything. Like, this is kind of going back to Comic-Con Special Edition. This is the Who's in Whoville without the tree type of thing. Is they're all going to gather and appreciate it no matter what. So it really didn't matter the logistics of the schedule, because they were all in on the weekend, which makes a lot of sense, and I totally understand. Just not being, from that community, not being as aware of how the show works and the scheduling, it just seemed very odd that there wasn't clear communication, and that, press is reaching out and not getting responses back to her and stuff. So that was kind of all of that. But as I said, we ended up, as I went Sunday, but I wanted to go down really quick the Sunday panels, because I thought it was a really strong schedule there. So you had Writing for Animation with a great collection of talent there, Studio Series Stop Motion, Transformers movie, that's the 86 movie, a big Q&A there, Remembering Jack Angel with Michael Bell, Jerry Hauser, Paul Elding, Neil Ross, and crew, Beast Wars Q&A, they included Women in Voice Acting was another focus, and then again the dealer room open all day, and the tabletop gaming and all of that. There was a couple cosplayers, there was 3 cosplayers there that I saw during my time there. They looked fantastic in their Transformer costumes. But for me, it was really all about the vintage toys. I wasn't really there to do any autograph hunting specifically this time. In the end, I picked up, I did a video of the floor and stuff you can find on our YouTube channel if you're interested. I picked up a Transformers number 2 from when it was going to be a limited series, and it has Symbiote Spider-Man on the front there, which is just a fun cover to it. And then I believe it's Transformers number 41, which just has such a beautiful, epic, Google it if you can, but really, or post it on social media, but just an epic cover, I think, with all sorts of incredible Transformers on the cover, all kind of clashing and battling out, and got good prices on both of them. I looked them up on eBay, because although I'm really into comics and very comfortable with the prices, I haven't collected a ton of Transformer comics, and so I looked and I was like, okay, these prices really matched up. I did a little bit of eBay searching while I was there of just some of the things I would see at the booths, and I felt a lot of stuff was really very competitive price. There was not, I would say, anywhere near the number of types of vintage toys outside of Transformers that something like PowerCon has, where I feel like at PowerCon you do see a lot of superpowers and Star Wars mixed in there. It's maybe an 80-20 or a 75-25 at something like PowerCon, with Masters of the Universe being the core. It felt here like it was a little bit more like 90-10 to me, like but there was still stuff. You saw Motu there, you saw some Black Star, some Visionary, some superpowers, Secret Wars, a few things mixed in, but not anywhere near as common. A lot of great booths of vintage stuff. Stylin' Online was there with a collection of Transformer shirts, so a small booth. I've never seen them actually have a booth that wasn't like the Tower of Shirts. It was just tables with Transformer shirts out there. Got to see our good friend Steve there, who had a booth, and he was doing quite well, and him and his son were knocking it out of the park with just some incredible items on display at their booth there. A lot of vintage, particularly obviously Transformers, but also G.I. Joe. Some really phenomenal stuff. Our friends George and Chris from CBC Apparel there. So it's kind of nice just catching up with some people there. I know there was a lot of conversations I heard as I was walking around where it was like, even on Sunday, exuberance of like, I haven't seen you in years, type of thing. So I don't know if these are people that just came on Sunday as well, or they just kept missing each other the other days. But you could tell, again, like a Gallifrey 1 or a Monster Palooza, this is people coming together for a community event. The toys are obviously what brings the people together, but it's the friendships that kind of, it's what keeps it going, and it's what makes it so worthwhile to everybody, and what excites everybody about it. So it's definitely on my radar now. I'm glad about it. And like I said, I want to learn more, or relearn or learn. I'm not sure what's the proper term there, because there's a lot of things when you're collecting as a kid that you're not going to know, and as an adult, it's like, oh, okay, now I know what a 21 back A is, or versus a 12 back, or things like that when it comes to Star Wars collecting, things like that. And so I'm I always love to learn things, so I'm excited to learn things about Transformers and see, if you can afford to pick one or two up here and there. But it is a barrier to entry these days, just with all collecting of vintage toys. Everything has skyrocketed since, particularly since the pandemic began, and so it remains to be seen how obtainable anything is. So.
Well, I'm glad you got to go at least for a little bit. So the Sunday ticket was only $20, I think, right?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so I bought that at the door because there was like a $5 fee if you bought it online. So I thought, I haven't seen any concern about selling out. We have friends at the show. If anybody thought it was going to sell out, I think they'd give us a heads up. So I wasn't too worried about getting out there. I did park a couple blocks away to avoid paying the Marriott parking fees as well. So I got out of that whole thing as cheap as possible, so I could put that towards, buying a couple things actually on the show floor instead. So
cool.
And then from there, now we fast forward, we're going to kind of look at the calendar of what's coming up here in the days and weeks ahead. We did get a little bit of a slowdown there. I got quite sick, I was going to say, because part of that day may have been getting food poisoning. I don't know, at the Del Taco across the street. One thing about the Marriott Burbank, the food is just like gone in there in terms of like the grab and go type stuff mostly. And maybe they had it hidden away somewhere else, but like the convenience store and stuff was now like luggage storage. And so it's just interesting to see how things change. We're just over at the Hilton Anaheim Convention Center, and it's like, well, our submarine is gone, and there are things that are just different than they were 2 or 3 years ago at these shows. So continue to learn about that. And I didn't want to pay the restaurant food prices, but anyway, a part of getting sick and having a really high fever for a couple days is we just got a little bit behind on all of our shooting schedule and stuff, but we are picking it back up here, and that begins in a lot of ways after this with Knott's Berry Farms Boysenberry Festival. That kicks off Media Day. Opening day is March 18th. We'll be out there covering that. Spooksy Boo has their next show. It's Ghouls Day Out. That is on the 19th. The IE Outdoor Toy Exchange returns on March 19th. Even Fear of a Black Planet begins its exhibit over at the Culver Center at UCR, the University of California, Riverside. That begins on March 19th. Model Kit Collector Show in Buena Park is returning March 20th. Toyzilla has their next Toy Swap Meet on March 26th. Collector's Dream returns March 27th. WonderCon, that's the big show on the calendar coming up in front of us here, April 1st through the 3rd at the Anaheim Convention Center. Hollywood show just a couple weeks later, March 15th. I'm sorry, April 15th through the 16th, Sticker Expo. That is a Frank & Son show. It's a new one to my understanding. I don't think we've attended that, and I believe it's another one of the Spooksy Boo shows. That's April 16th through the 17th. And then San Diego Comic Fest. That'll be returning to the last show we went to pre-pandemic, so it'll be a month of nostalgia ahead for us. That's April 21st through the 24th down in San Diego. Once again, we thank everybody that's following along with us, whether you are listening audio only or if you are watching the vidcast. Please like and subscribe on the YouTube channel, whichever side of that you're doing. It's very hard to break through the algorithm on anything these days if you're not just very specific, and we're not very specific, just Disney people or just toy people. We cover a variety of fun diversion, so please help us out however you can there. Also, another way to help is by spreading the word, sharing this video, sharing this podcast wherever you have social media. Giving us plugs whenever you can is greatly appreciated. If you are interested in bonus content, something like the WonderCon video that we have coming up, you can follow along with us on Patreon as well. Find us at Parks and Cons. Remember, in social media, in real time, we are covering things on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube. Wrapping up this talk episode. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.